Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's a little rainy, overcast, but it's nice. You can hear the water running in the creeks nearby. You see the flowers coming up. You hear the birds. So it's a restful, perambulating meditation. It's very pleasant. Not so pleasant, and I can't shake it. Of all the stories leaving Afghanistan, the circulating, perhaps or not, defective vaccines. There are important things going on, but I can't get past this first principle about us treating each other equally. And I think it's because it's an issue that cuts across all sorts of lines that determine what kind of society we have, indeed, whether we have a democracy. And let me explain. We have racial injustice, no question. Police who think some people who are persons of color are not human. There's no other way you can describe their treatment of another human being than that they don't see that person as a human being. That's a major problem. And nationwide, we have to sort of pick one by one to throw those people out of departments who start with that. And we should test them for that. And the justification should be racism. And if there are specific charges in the past hidden in their personnel files, we should dig them out and deal with it. Shouldn't be any question about it. Because in the last several days, there have been more incidents, and I thought about talking about them. But what do you say? They're all the same. A combination of contempt of cop, perhaps gross errors that are pretenses to stop someone, then insisting a person do something that for a person of color puts them at greater physical risk and harm, ordering them, treating that as insubordination, because I gave you an order. And then that's where it breaks down. They hit them, they tear gas them, they throw them to the ground, they shoot them, they sit on them. And then we have in court in Minneapolis a so-called expert say, yeah, you can kind of do those things. Well, no, because if that's in the manuals across this nation, they've all got to be changed, because that's not acceptable. We're supposedly overrun by, I don't know, white supremacists and Nazis in these police departments. They just don't seem to care that a person is a person. Now, that's why I think the trial in Minneapolis is pivotal. We will turn one way toward continued reform if there's a conviction, and I don't think I'm overstating it, because anything else is unacceptable. If this case is not a conviction, no cop has ever done anything wrong. And if it goes the other way, I'm afraid the people will be so frustrated that justice doesn't exist for them, that they will turn to rioting and complain that way. Of course, they saw how last year, before this administration, that had no effect, even though a bill was introduced in the House and went to the Senate. So I think the conviction is critically important to how our nation moves forward, because this is happening at a time when we're also watching legislatures try to restrict the vote of blacks, Jim Crow redux. And we have people who do not understand the notion of white privilege, which is by the fact that my hand is white, I get treated differently than a person of color. My mom never had to tell me to watch out what I said before a cop, because it could result in a phone call to her that I had been hurt or killed because I didn't handle myself well with an officer. The question of jobs seemed mostly based on merit for our whole life, if we're white. But if you're a person of color, not so. And my classmates had a discussion, which I rarely join, because they seem to go on. And so every once in a while I sort of graze a little bit and see what they said. And, some got it. They see that white privilege is this. And one of the questions I asked them were, how many blacks were in our classes at the high school that we attended? And frankly, I don't remember a single one. Now at Columbia University, that was different. In my neighborhood, that was different. I remember taking a friend of mine and others, and we all went to one of the parents' homes, and it was an apartment in a picturesque tenement in the South Bronx. And the mother came to me and said, I'd like you all to leave, but you can come back, just don't come back with Stevie. That may have been my first realization that the fact that Stevie was black mattered to some, if not to us kids who were playing in the street. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than whether or not kids get to visit somebody's home. It's a whole life. And so the pivot point of this trial is that not only if he's convicted does that ring true with our sense of what's just, it also sends a signal to those who would try to limit the vote. It sends a signal to those who would not give funds for food and housing and unemployment, who would resist redlining in neighborhoods. It's a signal that affirmative action to make up for all those years of white privilege, discriminating for whites to the detriment and pain and suffering, economic and otherwise, of persons of color. So those are a few of my thoughts today. The other issues are critical and important, but this one is so fundamental to our definition of what we mean by all men are created equal, and what we mean by democracy, and what we mean in our Constitution by promoting the general welfare. So I can't escape that in my mind today, although I had a number of other things that jump around in my head as important. But nothing in the end, as I squint with my mind, comes out as important as how we handle this question of race, which we've handled so poorly from the moment we lied in the Declaration of Independence and put in provisions in the Constitution that treated persons of color as fractional human beings without any rights except to help apportion power among the several states. So that's my thing for the day. I can go back to my walk. I hope you're well. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.